The first thing we'll need to allow a user to create a new account on a custom registration page is a link to get to that page. We're still in the startup class where the identity server options have a property authentication options. That exposes a property login page links. These are shown on the login view and provide links to other web pages that they might need to visit before they can log in. Think user registration page for account creation or a password reset page. A login page link has a type, which is an identifier for the type of link, and it should be unique. It also has a text property shown on the login page and an href property which contains the URL for the link to the create user account page. And that's the one we'll have to create. So let's do that. Let's add a controller. We'll name it create user account controller. If you have a look at the identity server project now, we see the necessary references and folders for MVC have been added to this project. First thing to do is change the default routing. If you look at the startup class, we see that we've mapped the application to /identity. So we must ensure our routes match that. We do that in the route config class. Then we'll need a model that we can link to a view. This should contain the fields the user can choose. So let's add one and name it create user account model. This will allow the user to input a first name, a last name, choose a username and password, and choose a role. That's why we also include a list of items we can show in the drop-down box. Like that, we can let the user choose a subscription which will match to a role, free user or paying user. Then we'll need a view. Let's add that. And let me paste in the UI. The view accepts the model we just created and shows fields we can input values for username, password, etc. into. It also shows a drop-down list, so the user can choose the role. In a real-life situation, you'll probably want to add a password strength algorithm. You'll definitely want to use encryption for your passwords. You'll want to check if the username is unique and so on. But for demo purposes, this should be sufficient. So, onto the controller. The HTTP GET for index is simple enough. We return a view with a new instance of our create user account model, so we can use the roles from that model. When the create account button is clicked, we end up in an HTTP post method. Let's paste that in, because that's where we'll have to create a user. What we want to do is create a new user using our repository. If you wish, you can add additional logic here before making a user active. For example, send a mail with an activate account link. For the demo, we'll make the user active by default. We'll also want to add the claims to the list of user claims, give name, family name and the role. And then we can effectively save the user by calling add user. One important thing, when a user navigates to this page, to one of the login page links, a sign-in query parameter is passed to the page. That's why we accept that parameter in the actions parameters list. This parameter should be echoed back as a sign-in query string parameter to the login page when the user wishes to resume their login. If we don't do that, any action we do after this will no longer work, as that sign-in parameter is unique for each sign-in request from the client. So let's make sure we do that. The login page is at /login, so that's where we'll redirect to. It's here that we need to pass in that sign-in parameter. And that should be it. After the user has been added, we're redirected back to the login page. Let's give that a try. We're redirected to the login page, and now we see a create new account link right underneath the login button. Let's click that. And we're at our custom create account page. Let me create an account for a friend of mine. I choose secret as password. And as he's a friend of mine, let's give him access to the paying version. That should be it. The account has been created and we redirected to the login page. Now let's see if this works by inputting Tim and secret. And there we go. Tim is now logged into the trip gallery application. He only sees the public trips because he hasn't created any trips for himself yet. So this works, but a user still has to choose a password and username. What if those are already in another system, at an external identity provider, like Facebook for example? We can integrate with that. Let's check that out in the next demo.